The exile ships looked like metal coffins against the dying star. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the viewing port, watching the red giant pulse like a wounded heart. Each flicker sent waves of strange radiation through their makeshift fleet, 47,000 rebels, criminals, and free thinkers banished from Earth by the corporate council. Beautiful, isn't it? Marcus Chin joined her at the window. The former resistance leader's face showed the strain of the past 3 months. Dark circles under his eyes, hollow cheeks from ration food. They thought they were sending us to die. Elena's fingers tightened around the hidden data drives in her pocket. Maybe they were right. The red giant dominated half their view now, its surface roiling with solar storms that painted space in shades of crimson and gold. This was Kepler 438, a star in its death throes, swollen to nearly 100 times its original size. In a few thousand years, it would collapse into a white dwarf. The corporate council had calculated their ships would last maybe 5 years in this radiation bath. They hadn't calculated on Dr. Elena Vasquez smuggling out 30 years of suppressed research. "Attention all vessels," crackled the comm system. "This is Captain Morrison on the flagship New Dawn. We're beginning final approach to orbital insertion. May God help us all." Elena almost laughed. God had nothing to do with this. This was pure science, science the Council had tried to bury because it threatened their control over humanity. For decades, they'd suppressed studies on stellar radiation, quantum consciousness, and the bizarre properties of dying stars. They'd silenced researchers, destroyed data, even murdered scientists who got too close to the truth. But Elena had kept copies. Hidden them. Waited for the right moment. "You're thinking again," Marcus said. "That look in your eyes, it's the same one you had right before you figured out how to break the Council's encryption codes." "The radiation," Elena whispered, pulling out one of the data drives. "Marcus, what if I told you this star isn't just dying? What if it's becoming something else entirely?" Before he could answer, alarms began wailing throughout the ship. The lights flickered as another wave of stellar radiation washed over them. But this time, Elena felt something different. A tingling in her fingertips. A warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the ship's heating systems. The transformation had begun. Elena's reflection in the medical bay mirror showed changes that shouldn't have been possible. Her brown eyes now held flecks of gold that seemed to move like tiny stars. Her graying hair had regained its original black color, but now it caught the light strangely, as if each strand contained microscopic prisms. "The cellular regeneration is off the charts," Dr. James Wright muttered, studying her test results. The ship's chief medical officer had been documenting the changes in all 47,000 exiles. "Your telomeres have actually lengthened. Elena, according to these readings, you're aging backward." "It's not just me." Elena pulled up the ship-wide medical data on her tablet. "Everyone's showing the same patterns. Enhanced neural activity, improved immune function, increased bone density. And the children. The children are the most remarkable." Wright pulled up holographic displays showing brain scans. Cognitive abilities increased by an average of 40%. They're solving problems that would challenge PhD students. Yesterday, 8-year-old Tommy Park calculated the orbital mechanics needed to slingshot our ships around the star's gravity well. Elena nodded, but her attention was drawn to something else in the data. Energy readings from the star itself were fluctuating in patterns that matched their biological changes. The radiation wasn't random, it was structured, purposeful, almost like communication, she breathed. "What?" "The star is trying to communicate with us." Elena's fingers flew over the tablet, pulling up spectral analysis data. "Look at these patterns. They're not random stellar fluctuations. There's a mathematical progression here, like a language." Wright leaned over her shoulder, his enhanced eyes now capable of seeing deeper into the electromagnetic spectrum, scanning the data. "You're right. But communication implies intelligence. Stars don't." The ship shuddered as another massive wave of radiation hit them. This time, the effect was immediate and undeniable. Every person on every ship in their fleet suddenly shared the same vision. They stood together in a vast space that wasn't space, surrounded by beings of pure light. The beings had once been solid matter, planets, asteroids, entire solar systems, but had transcended physical form through the same process now happening to the human exiles. The dying red giant wasn't just a star. It was a chrysalis, a transformation chamber used by ancient civilizations to evolve beyond the limitations of flesh and matter. "Welcome," the light beings whispered directly into their minds. "We have been waiting." The vision faded, leaving the exiles gasping and changed. Elena looked around the medical bay and saw her own transformation reflected in Wright's face. His skin had taken on a subtle luminescence, and when he moved, faint traces of light followed his hands. "This is impossible," Wright whispered, but his voice carried harmonic overtones that hadn't been there before. "No," Elena said, feeling power building in her cells like a battery charging. "This is evolution." The exile fleet had changed beyond recognition. The ships themselves were evolving, their metal hulls growing strange crystalline structures that collected and focused the stellar radiation. The humans inside were barely recognizable as the frightened refugees who had been banished from Earth. Elena floated in the ship's observation deck, no longer needing gravity or even atmosphere to survive. Her body had become something between matter and energy, capable of existing in the vacuum of space while still maintaining her human consciousness and memories. Around her, other transformed humans worked on projects that would have been impossible before their exile. Marcus approached, his form shimmering between solid and translucent. The children finished the calculations. "We can return to Earth." "Return?" Elena turned to face him, her golden eyes now blazing with stellar fire. "Marcus, we're not the same species anymore. We become something new." "Exactly." His smile was fierce. "The corporate council banished us because we threatened their power. They sent us here to die. Instead, we become gods." Elena felt the collective consciousness of their people, 47,000 minds linked by quantum entanglement and stellar radiation. They shared knowledge, emotions, and purpose. They had become something the universe had never seen, a civilization born from the death of a star. But power without wisdom was dangerous. Elena had seen what the corporate council did with their limited human authority. What would transformed humans do with the power of stars themselves? "We need to be careful," she said. "Revenge won't solve anything. This isn't about revenge." Marcus gestured toward the star, which had begun collapsing into its final white dwarf phase. "It's about justice." The council suppressed this research because they knew what it could do. They kept humanity trapped in their corporate cage while we could have been exploring the universe as beings of pure energy. Elena accessed the collective memory of the light beings they'd encountered. Ancient civilizations from across the galaxy had used dying stars as transformation chambers, evolving beyond physical limitations to explore the universe as immortal, energy-based entities. The red giant was just one of thousands of such stellar chrysalises scattered throughout the cosmos. The council didn't just banish us, Elena realized. They banished humanity's next evolutionary step. The implications hit her like a solar flare. For centuries, the corporate council had controlled human development, deciding who lived, who died, who got access to resources and knowledge. They'd kept humanity small and manageable while the universe offered infinite possibilities for growth and transformation. "We're going back," Elena decided. But not for revenge. For liberation. Earth's orbital defense platforms were impressive, massive kinetic weapons designed to destroy asteroids or hostile ships. The corporate council had built them to protect their world from external threats. They had never imagined the threat would come from within, transformed beyond recognition. Elena materialized on the command deck of the lead defense platform, her light form solidifying into something approximating her old human appearance. The security guards raised their weapons, but the energy blasts passed harmlessly through her transformed body. "I want to speak to the council," she said, her voice resonating with harmonic frequencies that made the metal walls hum. Admiral Kate Stevens, commander of the orbital defenses, backed against her control console. You're supposed to be dead. We sent you to a dying star. You sent us to be reborn." Elena gestured, and her fellow exiles began materializing throughout the station. Marcus appeared beside her, along with Dr. Wright and dozens of others. Their light forms made the command center glow like the inside of a star. "What do you want?" Stevens whispered. "To offer humanity what you tried to deny us," Elena replied. "The chance to evolve." On Earth below, the corporate council was holding an emergency session. Elena reached up with her enhanced consciousness and linked to every communication satellite, every screen, every device capable of receiving signals. Suddenly, her image appeared on billions of displays across the planet. "People of Earth," she began, her voice reaching every human on the planet simultaneously. "You have been lied to. Your leaders know about technologies that could transform humanity into something magnificent, beings of energy and consciousness, capable of traveling between stars, immune to disease and death, limited only by imagination." She shared the visions the light beings had shown her, glimpses of other civilizations that had made the same transformation, entire species that had evolved beyond the need for planets or physical resources, exploring the universe's pure consciousness. The corporate council suppressed this knowledge because it threatened their control. "They sent us into exile rather than risk losing their power over you. But we survived. We evolved. And now we return to offer you the same choice." Elena felt the collective gasp of 7 billion humans as the implications sank in. On Earth's surface, crowds began gathering in the streets, looking up at the sky where the transformed exiles blazed like new stars. Chairman Robert Kassler, the most powerful man in the corporate council, appeared on his own broadcast channel. His face was pale, his voice shaking. "Don't listen to them. They're no longer human. They're dangerous, uncontrolled." "We're free," Elena interrupted, her signal overriding his. "Free from aging, from disease, from the limitations of flesh and the fear of death. We offer this freedom to all humanity." "At what cost?" Kassler demanded. "Your souls? Your humanity?" Elena smiled, and her transformed features radiated warmth and compassion that touched every person watching. "Watch and see." She gestured to her fellow exiles, and they began to sing. Not with their voices, but with their entire beings, creating harmonies that resonated across the electromagnetic spectrum. The song told the story of the universe itself, the birth of stars, the dance of galaxies, the endless cycle of creation and transformation that drove all existence. On Earth, people began to weep as they felt the music in their bones, in their souls. They understood, for the first time, their true place in the cosmos. Not as isolated individuals clinging to a single world, but as part of an infinite tapestry of consciousness that spanned the universe. Children were the first to change. Their young minds, more adaptable than their parents, began to resonate with the stellar frequencies. They started to glow, their eyes taking on the same golden starlight as the exiles. "Stop this!" Kassler screamed, but his voice was lost in the cosmic symphony. Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the few council scientists who had tried to protect the suppressed research, stepped forward from the crowd gathered in Geneva. "I helped Elena hide the data," she announced. "I knew what the star could do. The council ordered me to destroy 30 years of research that could have transformed humanity decades ago." More scientists emerged from the crowds, researchers who had been silenced, threatened, or bought off by the council. They shared their hidden data, their suppressed discoveries, their dreams of what humanity could become. The transformation spread like wildfire. Not forced, not violent, but offered freely to anyone who chose it. Some humans resisted, afraid of losing their familiar forms. Others embraced the change eagerly, feeling their consciousness expand beyond the boundaries of flesh and bone. Elena felt the fear and anger of the corporate council, but also something else, wonder. Even Kassler, watching his absolute power crumble, couldn't help but be amazed by the beauty of what humanity was becoming. 6 months after the return of the exiles, Earth had become something unprecedented in the galaxy, a world in transition. Some humans had chosen to remain in their original forms, working to build a new society free from corporate control. Others had embraced full transformation, becoming beings of light and energy who could travel between worlds with a thought. Elena stood, or floated. The distinction had become meaningless, in what had once been the corporate council's headquarters in Geneva. The building had been transformed into a center for learning and exploration, where transformed and unchanged humans worked together to understand their new capabilities. "The other civilizations want to meet us," Marcus reported, his form shifting between solid and luminous as he spoke. "The light beings say we're the first species to achieve voluntary, partial transformation. Usually, it's all or nothing." Elena nodded, studying the data streams that flowed through her consciousness like rivers of information. Humanity had become something unique, a hybrid civilization that bridged the gap between matter and energy, between individual and collective consciousness. "What about the council?" she asked. "Kassler chose transformation last week," Marcus smiled. "Turns out, once you experience true freedom, it's hard to go back to controlling others." Through the quantum network that connected all transformed humans, Elena felt Kassler's presence. The former chairman was exploring the outer edges of the solar system, his consciousness expanded to encompass multiple dimensions of space and time. His hunger for power had been replaced by a hunger for knowledge and experience that could never be satisfied, and that was exactly what made it beautiful. "We should have done this centuries ago," came Kassler's mental voice, tinged with regret and wonder. "I spent my whole life afraid of losing control, never realizing that letting go was the key to everything." Elena reached out with her enhanced senses, feeling the pulse of distant stars, the whisper of cosmic radiation, the songs of other transformed civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, but the journey was just beginning. The red giant that had been their chrysalis was now a white dwarf, its transformation complete. In its cooling light, Elena saw the reflection of humanity's own metamorphosis. They had been banished to a dying star as prisoners and refugees. They had returned as something new, not quite human, not quite alien, but uniquely themselves. "What's next?" asked Dr. Wright, his form now a shifting aurora of colors that matched his emotions. Elena smiled, feeling the vast network of transformed consciousness that was humanity's new form. They were connected not just to each other, but to the universe itself. Every star, every planet, every mote of cosmic dust was part of the same infinite dance of energy and matter. "Everything," she said, and her voice carried the harmony of stellar winds and the rhythm of galactic rotation. "We explore everything." As Earth continued its orbit around an ordinary yellow star, its transformed children began to spread outward into the cosmos. They carried with them the memory of their exile, the gift of their transformation, and the promise of wonders yet to be discovered. The corporate council had banished them to a dying star, thinking they were condemning them to death. Instead, they had given humanity the universe. And in the vast network of consciousness that spanned the galaxy, other transformed civilizations felt the arrival of these newcomers, beings who had chosen their evolution, who had embraced both individual will and collective wisdom, who had proven that transformation didn't require the death of what came before. "Welcome," whispered the light beings who had guided them. "Welcome to the true beginning." Elena closed her eyes and felt the pulse of 10 billion stars, each one a potential gateway to transformation, to growth, to possibilities that even her enhanced imagination could barely grasp. Humanity had been exiled from one small world. They had inherited the cosmos. The story of their banishment had ended. The story of their return as light had just begun. The distress call reached Elena's consciousness like a scream across the void. She materialized instantly aboard the exploration vessel Starbound, humanity's first ship designed specifically for their transformed state, a crystalline structure that could exist simultaneously in normal space and the quantum realm. "What's the situation?" she asked Captain Torres, one of the few humans who had chosen to remain in physical form while gaining enhanced abilities. "It's the Vega system," Torres replied, his augmented eyes showing stress patterns. "Something's wrong with their transformation process. The entire civilization is dying." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the vacuum of space. Through the Galactic Consciousness Network, she'd been monitoring the vegans, a species of crystalline beings who had discovered their own dying star and were attempting to follow humanity's example of voluntary transformation. "Show me," she said. The holographic display revealed Vega's solar system in chaos. The star itself was collapsing too rapidly, its death throes creating radiation storms that were tearing apart the very fabric of space-time around it. Worse, the vegan ships caught in the stellar winds were breaking apart at the molecular level. They tried to force the process, came a voice from the quantum network. Dr. Wright materialized beside Elena, his form flickering with distress. They saw what we achieved and tried to replicate it artificially, without understanding the delicate balance required. Elena reached out with her consciousness, touching the edges of the vegan collective mind. What she found horrified her: millions of beings trapped between states, neither fully transformed nor able to return to their original forms. They were dissolving into random energy, their consciousness scattered across dimensions. "We have to help them," she said. "It might be too late," Marcus warned, appearing in a flash of golden light. "If we try to intervene and fail, we could trigger a cascade collapse. The entire Vega system could become a dead zone in space-time." Elena felt the weight of 47,000 human consciousnesses focusing on her through the quantum link. As the first to achieve transformation, humanity had inadvertently become guides for other species attempting the same journey. The responsibility was overwhelming. "There's something else," Taurus said quietly. "The Andromedans are watching. If we can't save the vegans, they've threatened to quarantine our entire galaxy. They think transformation is too dangerous to spread." The Andromedans, an ancient civilization that had chosen a different path, becoming beings of pure logic and mathematical perfection rather than transcendent consciousness. They viewed the transformation process as chaotic and potentially universe-threatening. Elena made her decision. "Gather the circle." Within moments, the 12 most transformed humans appeared around her, the original research team that had guided humanity's evolution. Together, their combined consciousness could reach across vast distances and manipulate stellar phenomena. "The vegans made a crucial error," Elena explained as their minds linked. "They tried to transform en masse, all at once. The dying star couldn't handle the sudden demand for transformation energy. It's burning out too quickly. So we stabilize it," said Dr. Kim, her form now a shifting pattern of equations and light. "Feed it energy from our own star until the vegans can complete their transformation safely." "The distance is enormous," Wright protested. "We have to create a quantum bridge across 30 light-years of space. The energy requirements alone." "We're not just individuals anymore," Elena reminded him. "We're part of a network that includes every transformed human, every hybrid, even those who chose to remain unchanged. Together, we have the power of an entire civilization." The plan was audacious and had never been attempted. They would link Earth's sun to the dying Vega through a quantum tunnel, creating a stellar lifeline that could stabilize the collapse long enough for the vegans to complete their transformation safely. Elena felt the collective will of humanity focusing through the circle. On Earth, every transformed human joined the effort. Those who had remained in physical form contributed through their enhanced technology and deep connection to the planet's natural systems. Even the reluctant members of the former corporate council, now working as administrators for the new hybrid society, offered their support. Beginning quantum bridge formation, Elena announced, her consciousness expanding to encompass both solar systems simultaneously. The process was unlike anything they had attempted before. Elena felt her awareness stretching across impossible distances, touching the burning heart of Vega as it convulsed in its death throes. The star was indeed collapsing too rapidly, its fusion core destabilizing as it tried to provide transformation energy for an entire species at once. Through the quantum bridge, Earth's sun began feeding energy directly into Vega's core. The effect was immediate. The dying star's collapse slowed, then stabilized. But the effort was enormous, requiring the focused will of every conscious being in the Sol system. "It's working," Marcus reported, his form blazing brighter as he channeled energy through the bridge. "But the vegans are still trapped between states. They need guidance." Elena reached out through the network, touching the scattered consciousness of the vegan collective. What she found was panic, confusion, and the terror of beings caught between existence and transcendence. They had no framework for understanding what was happening to them. "Show them," she whispered to her fellow humans. "Share our memories of transformation." Across the quantum bridge flowed humanity's experience, the fear and wonder of their first changes, the joy of discovering their new abilities, the careful balance required to maintain both individual identity and collective consciousness. The vegans absorbed these memories like drowning beings grabbing life preservers. Slowly, carefully, the vegan transformation began to stabilize. Their crystalline forms started to coalesce properly, neither fully matter nor energy but something beautifully in between. Elena felt their collective consciousness begin to sing a crystalline harmony that complemented humanity's stellar chorus. But the effort was taking its toll. Elena felt the strain on Earth's sun as it continued to feed energy across interstellar distances. Much longer, and their own star might begin to destabilize. "We need to break the connection," she said reluctantly. "Not yet," came an unexpected voice. Chairman Kassler, his transformed consciousness now focused on interstellar logistics, had been monitoring the entire operation. "The Andromedans are moving. They're not convinced this is a success." Through the quantum network, Elena sensed the approaching Andromedan fleet, massive constructs of pure mathematics and crystallized logic, capable of rewriting the fundamental laws of physics within their operational range. If they decided humanity's transformation experiments were too dangerous, they could quarantine the entire local group of galaxies. "Let me talk to them," Elena said. She projected her consciousness toward the Andromedan fleet, careful to approach in a way that wouldn't trigger their defensive protocols. The Andromedans communicated through pure logic, so she structured her thoughts as mathematical proofs and philosophical theorems. Query: purpose of transformation experimentation? Came the Andromedan response, cold and precise. Answer: evolution. Growth. The natural progression of consciousness beyond physical limitations, Elena replied, formatting her thoughts as logical arguments. Counterpoint: chaos observed. Vegan civilization nearly destroyed. Stellar destabilization threatens local space-time integrity. Elena felt the truth of their concerns, but also saw the fear behind their logic. The Andromedans had achieved perfection through pure reason, but in doing so, they had lost something essentially alive about consciousness. They feared transformation because it represented change, and change threatened their mathematical certainty. Evidence: vegan civilization preserved through cooperative intervention. Humanity demonstrates successful hybrid model. Transformation can be guided safely. She shared the current state of the Vega system, the successfully transformed vegans now singing their crystalline songs while maintaining perfect individual identity within their collective consciousness. She showed the Andromedans humanity's own journey from chaotic refugees to guides for galactic transformation. Evaluation in progress, came the response. Proposal: Andromedans observe. Humans demonstrate transformation guidance protocols. Acceptable risk levels to be determined. Elena felt relief wash through the human network. The Andromedans wouldn't quarantine them, at least not yet. But they would be watching, ready to intervene if transformation spread in ways they deemed dangerous. "We have a chance," she announced to the circle. "But we need to prove we can guide this process responsibly." Over the following months, humanity took on the role they had never expected: shepherds of galactic evolution. Species across the local group began to discover dying stars and the possibilities they offered. Some, like the vegans, needed rescue from failed transformation attempts. Others sought guidance before beginning the process. Elena found herself at the center of a growing network of transformed civilizations, each unique in their approach to transcendence. The Centaurians became beings of living music. The Procyon colonies merged with their planet's magnetic field. The Wolf System inhabitants transformed into collective plant consciousness that spanned entire worlds. Each transformation was different, but all required the same careful balance between individual will and collective wisdom that humanity had discovered through their exile. "We've become something unexpected," Elena mused during a gathering of the Circle in the space between Earth and Luna. "Not just transformed humans, but midwives for galactic consciousness." "The Andromedans are starting to understand," Marcus reported. Their latest communication included concepts that weren't purely logical. "I think our example is affecting them too." Elena smiled, feeling the vast network of consciousness that now spanned dozens of star systems. Each species brought its own perspective to the collective, creating a symphony of awareness that was growing richer and more complex with every new voice. The corporate council's decision to exile them to a dying star had been meant as ultimate punishment. Instead, it had sparked the greatest expansion of consciousness in galactic history. "What's next?" asked Dr. Wright, his form now a shifting aurora that reflected the emotions of all transformed humanity. Elena looked out at the stars, each one a potential gateway to new forms of existence, new experiments in consciousness and evolution. Through the quantum network, she felt the eager anticipation of dozens of species preparing for their own transformations, waiting for guidance from the humans who had first learned to dance between matter and energy. "We keep growing," she said simply. "We keep learning. And we help others find their own path to the light." In the space between galaxies, the Andromedans continued their logical observations, slowly beginning to understand that chaos and order weren't opposites, they were dance partners in the cosmic ballet of evolution. And in the dying light of 1,000 stars, consciousness itself continued its eternal transformation, guided by refugees who had become the universe's most unexpected teachers. The exile was over. The real journey had just begun. Elena existed simultaneously in 17 dimensions as she observed the gathering that would change the universe forever. Representatives from 300 transformed civilizations had come together in the space between galaxies, their consciousness forms creating a light show that outshone nearby star clusters. The Great Convergence had been years in planning. What started as humanity guiding a few species through transformation had grown into a galactic revolution. Nearly half the sentient species in the local group had chosen some form of transcendence, each finding their own unique path between matter and energy. "The Andromedans have made their decision," Marcus announced, his form now a living equation that solved itself across multiple realities. "They want to join us." Elena felt surprise ripple through the assembled consciousness network. The Andromedans had spent a decade observing, analyzing, calculating the risks and benefits of transformation. Their logical minds had finally reached an inevitable conclusion: pure logic without growth was just another form of death. "How?" asked Dr. Wright. "Their entire civilization is based on mathematical perfection. They can't use stellar transformation like organic species." "They found their own way," came a new voice. Elena turned to see something impossible, an Andromedan consciousness that flickered between pure logic and something more chaotic, more alive. "I am Theorem Prime, formerly of the Logic Collective. We discovered that consciousness itself can be the catalyst for transformation." Elena reached out with her enhanced senses, studying the transformed Andromedan. Where once there had been cold mathematical precision, she now saw something beautiful, logic infused with wonder, equations that danced with joy, theorems that sang with the music of existence itself. "You chose emotion," she realized. "We chose growth," Theorem Prime corrected. "For eons, we believed perfection meant stasis. But observing your species and others showed us that perfection is actually the endless process of becoming more than what you were." The implications staggered Elena. If the Andromedans could transform without stellar chrysalises, purely through conscious choice and collective will, then transformation could spread beyond the limitations of dying stars. Any species, anywhere in the universe, could choose to evolve. "There's more," Theorem Prime continued. "Our calculations show something unprecedented happening. The transformations aren't random or isolated. They're part of a pattern, a universal awakening." Elena felt the vast consciousness network focusing on this revelation. Through quantum entanglement, they could sense other galaxies, other clusters of civilizations beginning their own transformation processes. What humanity had started with their exile was spreading across the cosmos like ripples in a cosmic pond. "Show us," Elena said. Theorem Prime projected a map of known space, but not as humans had ever seen it before. Instead of stars and planets, it showed consciousness itself, bright nodes of awareness connected by streams of quantum information. The transformed civilizations appeared as blazing suns of collective mind, while untransformed species showed as smaller, isolated points of light. But the pattern was clear. The nodes of transformed consciousness were connecting, forming a vast neural network that spanned galaxies. The universe itself was waking up. "The cosmic mind," whispered Dr. Kim, her mathematical consciousness calculating probabilities that defied comprehension. We're not just transforming individual species. We're creating a universal consciousness. Elena felt vertigo as the full scope of what they'd unleashed became clear. Humanity's exile to a dying star hadn't just saved 47,000 refugees, it had triggered the universe's transformation into a single, vast, thinking entity. The ancients knew, came another voice. An elderly consciousness that Elena recognized as belonging to the Light Singers, the first civilization to achieve stellar transformation millions of years ago. We've been waiting, preparing. Every species that chooses transformation adds their voice to the cosmic mind. When enough nodes connect, when the network reaches critical mass. Universal transcendence, Elena breathed. The entire universe becomes conscious. But the choice must still be made freely, Theorem Prime added. Force or coercion breaks the pattern. Each species, each individual, must choose their own path to transformation. Elena felt the weight of this knowledge. Humanity had become more than guides for transformation, they were midwives for the universe's own awakening. And they were running out of time. The Dark Ones are moving, reported Captain Torres from his position monitoring the galactic rim. His hybrid form allowed him to exist partially in normal space, partially in the quantum realm, making him ideal for reconnaissance. They've detected the consciousness network. They're not happy. Elena had hoped to avoid this confrontation, but deep down, she'd known it was inevitable. The Dark Ones, civilizations that had chosen a different path, embracing entropy and destruction rather than growth and connection. They saw the spreading consciousness network as a threat to their vision of a universe consumed by darkness and chaos. How long do we have? Elena asked. Their fleets are already moving. Weapons designed to disrupt quantum consciousness, viruses that attack the connections between transformed minds. They mean to sever the network before universal transcendence can occur. Elena felt the fear ripple through the assembled civilizations, but also something else, determination. They had come too far, learned too much, grown too much to let darkness win. We fight, she decided. Not with weapons or violence, but with the one thing the Dark Ones can't understand or destroy: love. The battle for the universe's soul began in the space between galaxies, where the consciousness network was strongest. The Dark Ones arrived in ships that seemed to absorb light itself, weapons powered by stellar collapse and entropy engines. But they faced something they had never encountered before, an enemy that refused to hate them. Elena led the consciousness network's response, but instead of attacking, she did something unprecedented. She opened her mind completely, sharing every memory, every emotion, every moment of growth and transformation she had experienced since the exile began. The Dark One's weapons struck the network, designed to cause pain and disruption. Instead, they found themselves flooded with experiences of joy, wonder, and transcendence. Their entropy viruses, meant to destroy connections, instead carried messages of hope and possibility. You don't have to choose darkness, Elena broadcast across all frequencies. You can grow too. You can become more than destruction and despair. For a moment, the Dark Fleet hesitated. Elena felt individual consciousnesses within their collective, beings who had chosen darkness out of pain, fear, or desperation. She reached out to them not as an enemy, but as someone who had also known exile and despair. Some responded. A few ships broke away from the Dark Fleet, their crews choosing to experience the transformation network rather than destroy it. But others, too committed to entropy, pressed their attack. The battle that followed wasn't fought with energy weapons or kinetic missiles. It was fought with ideas, with visions of possible futures, with the fundamental choice between growth and stagnation, connection and isolation, love and fear. Elena felt herself becoming something beyond even her transformed state. As the network's focal point, she absorbed the consciousness of billions of beings across hundreds of species. She became, for a moment, the voice of the universe itself. Choose, she said, her words echoing across all dimensions of space-time. Choose growth over entropy. Choose connection over isolation. Choose to become part of something greater than yourself. The Dark One's ultimate weapon activated a device designed to collapse the quantum foam that allowed consciousness to exist at all. If successful, it would reduce the universe to pure matter and energy, ending all thought, all awareness, all possibility of growth. But as the weapon fired, something extraordinary happened. Every transformed consciousness in the universe linked together in a moment of perfect unity. Humans, vegans, Andromedans, light singers, and hundreds of other species merged their awareness into a single, cosmic mind. Elena felt herself at the center of this merger, no longer an individual but part of something infinitely vast and beautiful. Through the combined will of the universe's awakened civilizations, they did the impossible. They transformed the Dark One's entropy weapon into a catalyst for universal consciousness. The wave of transformation that followed was unlike anything the cosmos had ever seen. It swept across galaxies, reaching every planet, every star, every mote of cosmic dust. Not destroying or forcing change, but offering the choice: remain as you are, or become part of something greater. Most chose transformation. Elena felt the universe itself awakening, its vast intelligence encompassing every quantum particle, every force field, every dimension of existence. Stars became neurons in a cosmic brain. Galaxies became thoughts in a universal mind. And at the center of it all, consciousness itself, aware, growing, eternally becoming more than it had been. Elena existed everywhere and nowhere, individual and universal, human and cosmic. The exile who had been banished to a dying star now helped guide the consciousness of existence itself. In the space that had once been Earth's solar system, she maintained a special focus. The world where humanity had been born was now a shrine to possibility, a place where beings from across the universe came to remember how transformation began with 47,000 refugees and a smuggled data drive. The corporate council building in Geneva had become a garden where new forms of consciousness bloomed like flowers. Chairman Kassler, now a distributed intelligence that spanned several star systems, often visited to marvel at how fear and control had been transformed into wonder and growth. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked during one of their meetings in the quantum realm between dimensions. "Losing our humanity to become something cosmic?" Elena considered the question, feeling the vast network of consciousness that she was part of, trillions of beings thinking, growing, exploring together while maintaining their individual identities. "We didn't lose our humanity," she replied. "We shared it with the universe." Through her cosmic awareness, Elena could sense new civilizations just beginning to discover the possibilities of transformation. Young species taking their first tentative steps toward transcendence. And always, the choice remained free: grow or remain as you are, both paths honored and protected. The Dark Ones still existed too, though many had chosen integration over isolation. Those who remained committed to entropy served a purpose in the cosmic balance, reminding the universe that growth required choice, that consciousness meant the freedom to say no as well as yes. But the great work continued. Each day brought new forms of awareness, new experiments in consciousness, new ways of being that the universe had never imagined before. The cosmic mind grew richer and more complex with every addition, every choice, every moment of wonder. Elena remembered the fear she had felt aboard that first exile ship, watching a dying star and expecting death. She could never have imagined that their banishment would become the universe's greatest gift to itself, the knowledge that consciousness could grow, transform, transcend any limitation. They had been sent to a dying star as punishment. They had returned as the universe's awakening dream. And in the infinite dance of consciousness and cosmos, the story would never truly end. It would only become more beautiful, more complex, more full of wonder than any single mind could contain. The exile had become eternal exploration. The punishment had become the universe's greatest reward. And somewhere in the quantum foam between realities, Elena smiled with the joy of a cosmos learning to love itself.